I'm a 29-year-old guy, the oldest in my family. I have 3 siblings, a 27-year-old sister, a 25-year-old brother, and the youngest, my 22-year-old sister. For most of my life, we were a pretty close-knit family. Sunday dinners were something I always looked forward to, along with birthdays, holidays, and random weekend get-togethers. My family was the center of my social life. At least, that's how it used to be. Lately, though, things have felt different. It's hard to explain, but there's been a weird shift in the way everyone acts around me. At first, I thought I was imagining it. I'd show up to dinner, and it seemed like I was missing parts of the conversation. They'd laugh about something that happened, and when I asked what they were talking about, I'd get vague answers like, "Oh, just catching up," or "You had to be there." I chalked it up to me being paranoid, assuming maybe it was just my anxiety making me read into things too much. But then I saw something that didn't sit right with me. It was a random Tuesday night, and I was scrolling through Instagram before bed when I came across a story posted by my brother's girlfriend. It was a photo of my family at a nice restaurant, the kind we usually reserve for special occasions. They all looked happy, laughing together, but the thing is I wasn't there. I hadn't even known about it. At first I thought maybe it was an old photo, but the timestamp said it was from that night. The next day, I casually brought it up to my mom, not wanting to seem accusatory. I mentioned that I saw the photo and asked if they'd had a nice time. She gave me this weird, almost guilty smile and said, "Oh, it was just a last-minute thing. We thought you were busy with work." It felt off. My schedule isn't exactly unpredictable, and even if it were, they usually check in with me. I didn't push it, but the more I thought about it, the more uneasy I felt. A few days later, I was hanging out with my best friend and told her about what happened. She agreed it was strange and said I should just ask them directly if something was going on. I wanted to, but the idea of it made me feel sick. I was scared of what I might find out. So I decided to let it go, hoping it was a one-time thing. But it wasn't over. The next few weeks, I started noticing more and more events I wasn't invited to, little things at first. Brunches, game nights, a trip to the beach. I only found out because of social media posts or random comments in our group chats. It wasn't just one person leaving me out either. It seemed like everyone was in on it. And I had no idea why. That's when I decided to start paying closer attention. I looked through the family group chat and realized there were jokes and references I didn't get, things I had no context for. It felt like there were 2 different versions of my family. The one I was part of and the one I wasn't. I decided I needed to confront them, but every time I worked up the nerve, something stopped me. It's hard to describe the feeling of standing in a room full of people you love and suddenly realizing you're an outsider. I thought maybe I'd done something to upset them, but I couldn't think of anything specific. I hadn't had any major arguments with anyone recently, and as far as I knew, things were fine between us. The breaking point came last Sunday. We usually have dinner at my parents' house, but my mom called me in the afternoon to say they were rescheduling. She didn't give a reason, just said they'd let me know when they planned the next one. I was a little disappointed, but I figured maybe something came up. Later that night, I was scrolling through Instagram again, and there it was, another post from my brother's girlfriend. It was a group photo of them all at my parents' house, eating dinner like usual. My entire family was there except for me. They had the Sunday dinner without me and didn't even bother to tell me. That's when everything clicked. This wasn't just a few random missed invitations. They were deliberately excluding me. It felt like a punch to the gut. I wanted to call them right then and there, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I just sat there, staring at the photo, trying to figure out what could have changed so suddenly. I spent the next few days avoiding them. I skipped answering texts and didn't respond in the group chat. I didn't know how to face them without breaking down or getting angry. In the meantime, I started paying closer attention to their social media posts and the things they were saying to each other. I was looking for any hint of what I might have done wrong, but there was nothing obvious. It got to the point where I couldn't ignore it anymore. I posted on Reddit, asking if anyone else had experienced something similar. The responses were overwhelming. People told me I wasn't crazy, that something was definitely up, and I needed to confront my family directly. Just when I thought things couldn't get any stranger, I got a private message from an anonymous account. It said, "I know why they're avoiding you, but you're not ready to hear it yet." Before I could reply, the message was deleted. I was left staring at my screen, more confused than ever. What could be so big that they felt the need to hide it from me? I realized I couldn't avoid this any longer. I had to confront them and find out the truth, no matter how much it hurt. I decided enough was enough. I couldn't keep guessing why my own family was shutting me out, so I made a plan. My mom had mentioned a casual family brunch at a nearby cafe this weekend, and I figured this would be the perfect time to confront them. I was nervous as hell, but determined. I couldn't ignore it anymore, not after seeing them post about another dinner without me. I showed up early and got us a table, trying to keep my nerves in check. One by one they trickled in, my brother, then my sisters, and finally my parents. They all seemed surprised to see me already there, almost like they hadn't expected me to show up. I made small talk at first, trying to keep it casual until everyone was settled, but the tension was thick. My brother kept looking at his phone, my sister was unusually quiet, and my mom looked like she was forcing herself to smile. We ordered food and I decided to get straight to the point. I brought up the photo I'd seen on Instagram, the one where they were all having dinner without me. I expected maybe a bit of guilt or an apology, but instead, they just looked at each other like they were caught off guard. My mom quickly tried to brush it off, saying they thought I was busy with work, but I wasn't buying it. This wasn't the first time it had happened. I pressed on, listing off specific events I'd found out about through social media. The beach day, the brunches, the weekend getaway. The table went quiet. You could hear a pin drop. My brother gave my mom a sideways glance, like he wanted to say something but didn't dare. My youngest sister started fiddling with her napkin, avoiding eye contact. The silence dragged on, and it felt like the whole cafe was staring at us. I didn't care anymore. I asked them flat out if I had done something wrong. Had I upset them? Was there a reason I was being left out like this? My voice got louder, and I could feel tears welling up, but I held them back. I was shaking, but I needed answers. My mom started saying it wasn't a big deal, that I was making something out of nothing. My brother cut her off, looking frustrated. He blurted out that there was a reason they hadn't been including me, but it was complicated. My dad gave him a warning look, but the damage was already done. I demanded to know what was so complicated that my own family couldn't tell me about it. That's when things escalated. My sister tried to calm me down, reaching for my hand, but I pulled away. I was furious. I told them I deserved the truth. If there was something going on, I had a right to know. They all just sat there, staring at me like they didn't know what to say. It was like I was a stranger to them. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed my jacket, stood up, and walked out. I didn't even look back. I heard my mom calling my name, but I ignored it. I got into my car and just drove. I had no idea where I was going. I just needed to get away. That night, I got a text from my youngest sister. She said it wasn't what I thought and promised she'd explain everything soon, but begged me for a little more time. I didn't reply. What was there to say? I felt like I had just opened a wound that was already festering, and now I was left bleeding out with no closure. I went home and posted an update on Reddit. I needed to get it all out and see if anyone else thought this was as messed up as I did. The response was immediate. People were outraged on my behalf. The comments were full of theories, everything from family drama to a big secret they were hiding to protect me. It was a lot to take in, but it made me feel less alone, like maybe I wasn't overreacting. Then, late that night, my phone rang. It was my dad. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity got the better of me. He sounded different, quieter, almost guilty. He apologized for the brunch fiasco and said he was sorry for how everything had unfolded. I asked him to tell me the truth, but he just said it wasn't his place to explain. He kept repeating that it was complicated and that I needed to trust them. I hung up, feeling even more lost than before. After the disastrous brunch confrontation, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously off. My sister's cryptic text and my dad's guilty-sounding apology only made things worse. I realized that if I wanted answers, I'd have to dig for them myself. My family clearly wasn't ready to spill the truth, so I decided to go full detective mode. I needed a way to see what was happening behind the scenes, and after a lot of thinking, I came up with a plan. I contacted an old family friend who had been really close to my family in the past. She was still in touch with my parents, even though she'd moved away a few years ago. I reached out to her under the guise of wanting to catch up. I hoped that if I played it cool, I could get her to spill the beans on what was going on without her realizing my true intentions. After a few back-and-forth texts, we set up a meeting at a coffee shop. I felt like a spy walking in there, but I kept my cool. We talked about old times, and I even joked about how I missed the good old days when we used to all hang out. I carefully steered the conversation toward my family, keeping it casual. To my surprise, she didn't hesitate to drop a bombshell. She said she couldn't say too much, but she told me my family had been keeping something from me for a while. Something big. My heart started pounding in my chest. I needed to know what it was. She didn't go into specifics, but she did drop one key detail. Apparently, it was related to something that had happened years ago. Something I didn't know about. The moment she said it, I knew it had to be serious. I don't know how to feel anymore. The more I uncover, the less I recognize my family. I'm still piecing things together, but it seems like there's a huge family secret no one is willing to talk about. I keep getting more cryptic messages and vague explanations, and I'm starting to feel like I'm the last one to know what's going on. But I'm not ready to give up. Not yet. I have to find out the truth.